Old Man Sarge here. We're going to give this game a try, Western Empires. It's a pretty nice looking game. All the components that they have. Sorry for the glare off the game, but here's the map. So this is basically, the old Civilization game, but it's redone, and there's 9 countries involved. So I'll go over civilizations. So there's Egypt, there's Assyria, Hatti, Crete, which are Minoans, I guess, Hellas, which is essentially the Greeks, Carthage, Rome, the Celts, start there, and the Iberians. So let's just look at real quick what the goals are of the game. I'll put their starting figures on here pretty quick. So the Stone Age doesn't have any requirements. Everybody just moves up. The next requirement, Early Bronze Age, you have to build 2 cities. The next age is the Middle Bronze Age, 3 cities, 3 advanced or civilization advances to get to that age. The next stage, the Late Bronze Age, requires 3 cities and 3 civilizations and advances worth 100 points or more. 3 civilization advances, so not the cheap ones, but some things that are a little bit more. And then the early Iron Age, 4 cities and 2 civilization advances worth 200 or more. And then finally, to get to the end of the game and to call the end of the game, civilization has to have 5 cities and 3 civilization advances, each worth 200 or more, to finish the game. And then everybody counts up their victory points, and victory points are down here. That's one way of getting victory points, but the victory points are also on the civilization cards, like cloth making is worth 1 as an example. And then I believe the number of cities you have also comes into play, but we'll go over that as the game progresses. So we will be back after turn 1, and I'm going to actually put a die out to keep track of the turns, just so you know how long the turns take. The game supposedly will take 12 hours to play. The other side of this, however, is a more advanced version of the game. So if I flip this over, you can see that the requirements are significantly more complex to get. Like, just look at the early Bronze Age. 5 cities, 10 civilization advances, worth 100 or more, and a total of at least, or 100 or less, isn't it? Let's see. Worth 100 worth 100 or less, yeah. And a total of at least 38 victory points in civilization advances. So that's like a campaign on the back there to play. The other thing is that they haven't come out with the Eastern Civilization yet, but here's what the track would look like for the Eastern Civilization, because you'll have 18 civilizations spanning from India all over to, well, Middle East and India essentially were added in the Eastern Civilizations. I also got a couple of these expansions, the Western Empires expansion, which has buildings, and the buildings allow you to enhance your, and then I got Eastern Empires too, but it's not out yet. As soon as that game comes out, I'll get a hold of it. But what the little buildings allow you to do, the wonders, is you can trade them in. They allow you to add another civilization point, I believe, or a unit, and then you can also trade them in for an enhancement on your trade values, so you can add up your trades and get one level higher, which could be a pretty big advantage. So we'll be back at the end of turn 1. Alright, we are moving on to turn 2. I don't know if you can really see that, but turn 2, and everybody's moved up, of course. And this is what the board looks like. Iberia is kind of spreading out along the coast of the Mediterranean. The Celts are moving a little bit to the north and towards Rome. Rome is moving two different ways, and Carthage is moving a little bit south. Hellas is moving south from their starting point. Minoans, of course, don't have much of a choice. They just spread out. Hatti moved towards Assyria because they're higher on the scale, so they would get the advantage if they had a conflict. Assyria moved one south and one towards Hatti. And the Egyptians kind of split between moving in, along the coast of North Africa and along the coast towards the Holy Land. And there we are. End of turn 2, moving on to turn 3. And now we have finished turn 3, and everybody's moved up right in line. How's the board look? Iberia, everybody's kind of got these no man land spaces between them. The Celts, the Romans in North Italy, and they've got Marseille now down the southern boot. Carthage is moving across North Africa towards Egypt. Hellas kind of trying to move into Greece. Hatti is kind of bullying Assyria a little bit, pushing them back. And Egypt is trying to claim some locations outside of Egypt proper. And we will be back at the end of turn 4. Alright, I may have misspoke. We are moving into turn 4 now. I think I might have messed up in my explaining, because turn 1, then they go to turn 2, then turn 3. Now we're moving into turn 4, because they all moved up, I think. 1, 2, yeah. So now we're moving into turn 4. So I apologize if I messed up in explaining it. Here's Iberia. They're taking southern Iberia, and they're making sure that Rome knows that that city is theirs. Now the thing is that Iberia is lower or higher up on the scale, and so if they get into a conflict with Rome at the present moment, because they're equal, they will be able to fight first. So that's a disadvantage for Rome. The Celts, they're really high up, like they're the third one up. And so they better not get in a conflict, so they're just spreading over the northern portions of Europe at the moment, because Hellas has been more concerned with Greece, or with the Minoan, and so they've expanded south, and now they're starting to maybe expand north again, back to where they originally started. The Minoans, they got stuck on the island of Crete, and so they built a boat using 2 of their population points, and they moved quite a few of those points out into Greece proper. And now, because they built a boat, they have 2 less population than everybody, so they're actually the priority right now if they get into a conflict with, let's say, Hellas or anybody. Hatti has kind of stopped pressuring Assyria. Assyria did back off even more, even out of their original territory. And Hatti is now trying to push a little bit into Anatolia proper, probably to try to stop maybe the Minoans or Hellas from taking over some of the city spots on the Turkish coast there. And Assyria, they moved down, but Egypt just counter-moved, because, again, Egypt has priority if they get into a conflict, so that's not good for the Assyrians down in the southern area. Assyria's kind of getting squunched right at the moment. Alright, so we'll be back at the end of turn 4, and I'll do one last look over the board where you can see where all the populations are. Oh, I forgot to talk about Carthage. Carthage moved pretty aggressively over the coast towards Egypt, but Egypt has also moved over with their populations, and Egypt has priority, so we'll see how that all turns out. And then you can see Rome. You can see the Minoans and Hellas are almost next to each other. Egypt and Carthage are next to each other on the very southern end. Hatti is not next to anybody. They kind of got Central Asia taken care of, and the Assyrians are getting squunched between the Egyptians and the Hatti. So we'll be back at the end of turn 4. Alright, I believe we finished turn 5. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep, we finished turn 5. So that's where we're at. Turn 5. That's where everybody is. Minoans have one little extra step they can take. Minoan's population was the least. And what happened on the board? Well, Iberia, the Celts had one extra population. They moved into Aquitaine. Iberians moved in with 3 to kick them out, saying, nope, that's our territory. Rome is just taking over kind of northern Italy portions and the boot of Italy. Carthage continues to expand along the coasts of the Mediterranean, but Egypt pushed them back, took back 2 of the desert locations right here in Libya, and I can't even pronounce that, Tripolitania. Hellas, they took one of the territories from the Minoans by putting 2 guys there, and they're starting to push back into the Macedon area. Hatti is just expanding. They didn't really do anything negative against the Assyrians. The Assyrians built a city which I'll have to place there in a moment, and they're just trying to expand and take what they can, because Egypt and Assyria are kind of pressuring them. So that's where we are at the end of turn 5. 1 city will be on the board, and that will be the city for the Assyrians. They're the first ones to build a city. We'll be back at the end of turn 6. Alright, we are now end of turn 6, moving on to turn 7. And this is what the AST track looks like. So, Minoans got to move forward. Assyria, Celts did not, neither did Hellas. Carthage, Hatti, Rome, Iberia, Egypt all moving forward. So here's what Iberia, they built a couple cities up against the Romans. The Celts had the advantage. They went in and they took Aquitaine away from the Iberians. But Iberians have 2 cities. Carthage is starting to move across the plains here of North Africa. They did build 2 cities, 1 and 2, and then they pushed the Egyptians back because they had the advantage. Rome built 2 cities in the boot. They also built up a major force in Pannonia of 4 population units, and that's how they look. Hellas is moving north as fast as they can to stop the Celts and the Romans and possibly the Assyrians from taking over their lush territories. They got the city locations in middle portion of Greece. The Minoans have 2 cities, and they've settled Crete, or pardon me, Cyprus. Hatti has taken over Asia Minor almost completely. I think they actually have it completely taken over. The Assyrians have pushed back because they had the advantage, so Hatti kind of retreated in most locations. The Assyrians have quite a few troops, or not troops, population units over here in Syria and Lebanon area, what present day is. Egypt built up a couple cities to stop maybe the Assyrians from moving further into their locations, and they built a city in Syrian against Carthage, so Carthage can't really push. They'll just maybe battle over Jallo for turns in the future, unless somebody wants to buy boats. Okay, that is the way that the map looks. Sorry for the glare. So Celts are moving across the northern portion of Europe into what is modern-day Poland and Ukraine. And that's how we look at the end of turn 6. We'll be back at turn 7. Alright, we are moving on to the end of turn. We just finished the end of turn 6, so we're moving on to turn 7. And here's how it looks for the AST. The Minoans are still in the lead, but everybody else has 2 cities, so they're moving up to the next one, and the goal is to get 3 civilization advances and 3 cities. So here's how it looks. Iberia has pushed into Carthage area. They're in the tip of North Africa. They built another city, so they've got 3. The Celts have 3. They took over England. Rome built a city up, and they've taken out a lot of like good areas for city support, as you can see up there. Carthage get kind of squeezed. Egypt pushed back, but Carthage did push the Romans out of a large portion of Sicily. The Celts, they did take out some Hellas troops, or pardon me, population units in the northern portion of Macedon, but they did, the Hellas did build a city right on the coast there. So Hellas has 4 cities right now, which is tied for the most with Hatti. The Minoans are trying to get their population up. Hellas has got essentially Asia Minor all locked up and a couple islands as well. Assyria was able to build some cities, and they're on the very edge of the map, as always. And Egypt is trying to get their population built up so they can start building more cities and keep Carthage at bay. So that's how we look. We are now moving on to turn 7. Alright, Old Man Sarge back at the end of turn 8. So we'll start by looking at the AST track. Minoans are ahead, but again, they have to have 3 civilization advances and 3 cities in order to go into the Middle Bronze Age. And right now, they don't even have anything close. Next, we'll talk about the purchases. So, cloth making was bought by Iberia. The Celts, they bought their wonder. So that wonder allows them to put 1 extra unit in that territory, and they'll be able to sacrifice it to shift on a commodities so they can actually get more money than they normally would. The Romans decided to pick up astronomy, so they'll be able to go all over the map now. Carthage couldn't do anything. Minoans couldn't do anything. The Hellas, they bought this one, which is called Empiricism, which gives them a bunch of these bonuses that they can spend later on. Assyria got Mysticism. Hatti, pardon me, and this is out. Let's put this here so we can see it. They got Deism, which will help them against superstition. And finally, the arms race is on with Egypt. They got metalworking. That's one of the most important cards. In conflicts, for each round of a token removal, all other players not holding metalworking must remove their token first. So it gives them a benefit in combat. So it's really good for defense. So as far as the board goes, there was a calamity that happened against the Celts. It was treachery, so a city turned over to the Egyptians, who were way over here, but they got a city way over here. So they took over London from the poor Celts. Iberia is trying to settle North Africa. They are pushing back against the Celts. Carthage is kind of getting squunched a little bit, but they're holding out all right, but they only have 3 cities. The Celts are split, so they've got some force or some of their population over on Western Europe, and then they've got some of their population in the northeastern portion of Europe. The Romans have the central area, including Iberia. They're starting to settle Sardinia and Corsica now. Hellas, they're holding on. Assyria pushed a lot of forces or population to try to settle their lands, but they pushed them away. The Minoans are expanding a little bit, and in fact, Hatti, the Minoans took over 2 of Hatti's territories. So Hatti built up some cities against Assyria, and then you can see Assyria is doing okay, I guess. They've got a bunch of cities here, and their population is mainly right on the eastern edge. Kind of like in, I guess, it would be Iran and, I guess, present-day southern Russia. That's where we are at the end of turn 8. We'll be back, or turn 7, pardon me. No, that is turn 8. We'll be moving on to turn 9. We'll let you know what happens. Alright, we're finishing up turn 9, moving on to turn 10. The ASTs are all maxed out. We're still waiting for 3 Civilization Advance cards. I'll show you who has what. So Iberia still has cloth making. The Celts, they still have built Stonehenge. The Romans, they have purchased mysticism this turn, so they have both mysticism and astronomy. The Carthaginians have monarchy. The Hellas has metalworking, so they're part of this contest for the best weapons in the world. So them and Egypt have that. The Hatti and Assyria built their wonders in their respective places. The city and the ziggurat for Assyria. The Minoans, they bought cloth making. The Assyrians I already talked about. And the Egyptians bought monarchy. So there's, 3 nations that are at 2 civilization cards. They need 1 more to move ahead. And then let's take a look at the board. So Iberia is trying to fight off both Carthage and the Celts, but they actually did push into the lands of the Celts. The barbarians, which was a calamity, hit the Romans pretty hard, but the Romans still have a pretty big swath up north of Italy itself. The Celts are split into 2. Hellas still has Macedon and a lot of the other territories around it. And the Minoans are still holding on to southern portion of Greece, Crete, and Cyprus. Hatti pushed a little bit on the Assyrians, and the Assyrians are just trying to keep enough troops on the board, or population units on the board, to support their cities. And Egypt has to get more locations in order to build another city, because I think they need those 2 locations there to maintain their current level of cities. And there's Carthage. They're holding on. They were able to build another city finally at the end of Sicily. We'll be back at the end, turn 10. Alright, Old Man Sarge back. We are moving on to turn 11. There's been some changes in the AST track. Assyria, Rome, and Hellas each have 3 technologies, and they're moving up. So the next thing that they have to accomplish is 3 advancements of 100 or more to be able to get into the late Bronze Age. And we're on turn 11. We'll be moving on to turn 11. So let's look at the technologies. Cloth making, Iberia still has that. They haven't got anything more. Celts. The Celts are the beneficiaries of the civil war that happened in Egypt. So those 4 cities went to the Celts. And Egypt is going to have a rougher time now. Rome has 3 civilizations, or it's 3 civilization advancements. They have monarchy, mysticism, and astronomy. Carthage is close. They have 2, cloth making, or pardon me, monarchy and masonry. And Hellas has 3. They have empiricism, metalworking, and urbanization. Urbanism. Deism for the Hatti. Egypt is the one that got kind of hurt this last time. They have metalworking and monarchy. Assyria was able to buy 2 technologies. They bought metalworking and sculpture, and they have mysticism. And the Minoans have cloth making. And so here is how the board looks. there was a famine that hit, and also a tempest hit Iberia. Well, the famine hit the Celts, but Iberia also got hurt. So did Rome, and so did Egypt. And so Egypt removed that city up in the north and by London. You can see the Romans were doing okay. Now they got to try to get their population back up to support their cities. Hellas is doing just fine. They're probably, I would say, maybe in the lead between them and Rome and Assyria. Assyria, who knows how it's going to work out. They've been pushing, them and the Minoans have been kind of pushing on the Hatti. So, and Egyptians aren't going to be able to do much until they get rid of some of these rebellious cities here. And of course, Carthage is still fighting a two-front, almost a three-front conflict. We'll be back at the end of turn 11. Old Man Sarge back. We are at turn number 11 at the end of the turn. So here's how the AST looks. Everybody's advancing. You got Assyria moving up. You've got Minoans, the Celts, and the Carthage not moving, neither is Hatti. You have Rome, and you have Hellas. Now, just so you know, Iberia isn't moving up. It's just got an extra space, and Egypt's moving up as well. The technologies, Iberia has also, they had cloth making before, now they have mythology. Dyeism was purchased by the Celts this turn. The Romans haven't bought anything since the last turn. I'm not sure if Carthage had masonry last time or not. Metalworking was purchased by the Minoans. The Hellas did not buy anything. Assyria didn't buy anything. Hatti didn't buy anything, but Egypt did. They bought pottery so they can move up. Egypt's getting just absolutely wrecked over here. They had an epidemic that just wiped out a bunch of their units. Carthage, still fighting for North Africa. Rome has got some ship over there. Italy, got the Celts. The Iberians, trying to rebuild. Hellas is doing quite well, but they're down to 5 cities now. They lost, a cyclone came through the Black Sea and wiped out quite a few of their cities and hit the Hattis also. Assyria, and then you've got the Minoans, and then you've got kind of the Celts. Now there is an Iberian city over here because they committed treachery against the Celts, so they took one of their cities. All right, I think it was a Celt city, or no, it was an Assyrian city they took. All right, we're moving on to turn 12. We will be back at the end of that turn. We're trying to get 2 civilization cards now that are over 100 points, or 3 of them, I guess, over 100 points. So everybody's moving up. Not everybody, but I think there's 1, 2, 3 nations moving, 4 nations moving up. So we'll be back at the end of turn 12. Old Man Sarge back with Western Empires. Moving on out of turn 12, we're going on to turn 13. Here's what the AST looks like thus far. The Minoans are moving up now. Assyrians have to get to the next stage. Carthage is moving up. Rome has to get to the next stage. Hellas and Egypt is still moving up. The nations that are not are the Celts, Hatti, and Iberia at the present moment. And again, the next goal is 3 civilization advances worth 100 or more, and 3 cities. And then the next one is 4 with 2 civilizations of 200 or more, and then 5 cities and 3 civilizations at the very finish for worth 200 or more. So let's take a look at the cards. No change. Sorry, there's a glare. Cloth making is what it is. No change for the Iberians. No, I think I did buy cloth making for the Celts, so they have 2 civilization cards now. Rome bought agriculture, so they need to get 2 more to get over the next goal. Carthage just now bought their 3rd civilization card, mysticism, so they're moving forward. Agriculture was purchased for the Halys as well, and Hatti skipped cheaper cards, and they're trying a different strategy, so they bought an agriculture as well for 100 points. They're hoping that they can try to catch up to everybody. Egypt hasn't been able to do anything. Assyria, of course, is still moving, and then Daism was purchased by the Minoans to move up. As far as the board goes, we'll start with the bad. Egypt is they just kind of got, calamities are just slamming the Egyptians. But they do have 2 cities that they got from Hatti earlier. There's a ladybug on my screen. Assyria kind of pressed in and built a city right on the border of Hatti's capital. The Minoans controlling a large part of Greece itself, the islands, and Cyprus. And Hellas, it's got Macedon, basically. And Carthage is a little bit into this territory here, Illyrium, with a couple population units, but the rest are in North Africa, getting squeezed by the Iberians and the Egyptians, even though the Egyptians aren't doing so well at the moment. Oh, this one wasn't done, so we'll just have to finish that. Let's see. Iberia is doing quite well. I think they've got 8 cities on the board. One of them is way over here. Jericho is an Iberian city right now. But the majority of their power is Hispania, western portion of France, and mostly the western portion of North Africa. And the Celts, they're spread out all over. They finally got kind of connected again. Rome had cut them in half at one point. And then, of course, Rome is not doing so bad either. Alright, so that's the end of turn 12. We are now moving on to turn 13. We'll be back and let you know how that turn went. And we are back at the end of turn 13, moving on to 14. The AST tract, basically everybody has moved up except for the Celts and Hatti. And Iberia is now moved up, and the technology that they got was huge. They got a hold of theology. And the way that they got a hold of it was they traded in their wonder for a movement up in one of the, I think it was incense, so they maxed out on the incense. Plus everything else they were able to get to 100 or 250. So that's their 3rd card, which allows them to start moving up. And they also are set for the next 2 ones. So they're trying to play hardball with the rest of the forces. But I'll show you what happened. It was not too pretty. Celts still don't have 3 technologies. Rome has 4. One of them is 100. The Carthage has 3. They're moving up. 3 for the Minoans. They're moving up still. Halys is doing quite well, or was. I'll show you in a moment. Assyria, Egypt kind of bounced back only because of everybody else's calamities. So here's Egypt. They got their city back from a civil war that Iberia had. So go over North Africa. And then all of a sudden you can see that there's Egyptians in the west part of North Africa, which used to be Iberians. And there's Egyptians up in western France, which used to be Iberians. Iberian had a civil war, which just absolutely trounced them. And then there was a few other things that happened. There was an epidemic that took place in Minoan territory, which spread into Hellas, and it also hit Carthage as well. I don't remember what else happened. There was a few other things that kind of really threw people for a loop. So we're struggling. They're struggling to move up. See if they can get in to the next stage, requiring 3 advances of 100 points or more, then 2 advances of 200 or more, then 3 advances of 200 or more to end the game. All right, we'll be back at the end of turn 14. And here we are. This is Old Man Sarge. We're back, and this is the end of turn 14. We're now moving on to turn 15, Western Empires. The AST track is pretty much going to be evened up soon. The Celts are actually moving forward. The only ones not are Hatti. The 3 technologies, well, oh, sorry. So, again, theology is a huge one for Iberia, but Iberia's only got 2 cities out. I mean, everybody's just getting hammered by calamities right now. It's a cycle of the game, I guess. Rome, still with 4, but Rome did put out their Colosseum, which is their wonder. And then Carthage, they have 3. They're still moving up. And only 1 city out for Carthage. 7 cities out for Halys. They're the ones that are actually doing the best right now as far as cities go. Hatti's coming back with 5 cities, but they need 1 more civilization card in order to move forward. Minoans, they have 3 out. Assyria got hammered pretty hard with calamities. They've only got 1 city out right now. Egypt is starting to come back a little bit. So how does the board look? Well, Iberia still has Iberia, and they're trying to kind of push back into the areas that they once controlled. The Celts are still fighting for the northern reaches of Europe. The Romans have built the Colosseum, as I said. Carthage is just stuck in Tunisia pretty much. A little bit of Libya. The Minoans are doing pretty well. Well, not great, I guess. 3 cities. Halys is doing incredible. Hatti is trying to come back. They're getting squunched, but they are pushing on the Assyrians, so they might be able to hold out. And the Egyptians look like they're going to start building all their cities back again after those civil wars and the other calamities that hit them, epidemics and everything else. So that's how the board looks. I'll be back at the end, turn 15. Here we are at the end of turn 15. Everybody is even, waiting to get 3 civilization cards of 100 points or more. Some players are trying to already get the 200 points to just jump ahead. Of course, he bought philosophy, so Iberia is kind of ready to go. They got metalworking. Medicine was just purchased, so there's 2, so the Romans just need 1 more to move up. Carthage is still waiting, or trying to build up. All Hellas needs is 1 more as well. Poor Hatti needs another one just to get into the next age. They need 2 more for Minoans. Monument was purchased by the Assyrians, so they need 2 more 100 points to get moving forward, and that's the same with Egypt. They need 2. The calamities weren't so bad this round. It was mainly a rebuilding round for everybody. So Iberia is still holding strong with Iberia itself, a little bit of North Africa, pushing against the Celts a little bit, trying to rebuild their cities. They only have 3. Celts, they're still all over. They did build a very large city for 12 in the Danube. Rome. Rome has 8 cities on the board. They're one of the strongest countries at the moment. Them and Hellas. So Hellas and Rome are kind of the top 2. Carthage, I don't know where this got knocked over. Carthage, they're just holding on to the main portion, but they got a little bit more going on in Sicily now. And then Minoan, they've got 5 cities on the board. They're kind of struggling still. Hatti's really struggling. Assyria, they have only 2 cities on the board. They got hit pretty hard with a couple of bad events. And then of course there's Egypt, who's getting to the point where they've only got 3 cities, but they've got a pretty good makeup here to bust out. So that's how we look right at the moment at the end of turn 15. Moving on to turn 16. We'll come back and tell you how that turns out. Alright, we just finished up turn 16. I'm going to go ahead and move this. The only one that gets to move forward is Hatti. Oh wait, that's not true. Hallis gets to move forward too. Hallis just finally entered it because they have 3 technologies. We'll go through it. So here is what Iberia has for technology: cloth making, mythology, and philosophy. The Celts have metalworking, cloth making, and dyeism. The Romans, who have 9 cities right now, they have astronomy, mysticism, monarchy, medicine, and agriculture. They just need 1 more 100 to move on. The Carthage, they have mysticism, masonry, and monarchy. And then we move down to Crete, or not Crete, but Minoans. They have cloth making, metalworking, dyeism, and agriculture. And then we'll go and look at Assyria. They have mysticism, monument, metalworking, and sculpture. Egypt has agriculture, monarchy, metalworking, and pottery. This one was just bought by the Hatti. They have literacy now, agriculture, and dyeism. So reality is Hatti needs 1 more 100 point to go to start moving into even the next stage. But this is the one that really kind of moved forward, and this is Hellas, and they have empiricism, metalworking, urbanization or urbanism. They have philosophy, agriculture, and calendar. So there's 3 over 100 and 1 over 200. So they can get 1 more 200 pointer, they can go into the following age, and then they just have to see, they can go into this age here. Then this next one is 4 cities and 2 over 200, and then the last one is 3 civilization advances over 200 and 5 cities. So the actual push should be pretty rapid coming up here for some of these civilizations. So how does everybody look on the board? Iberia built a lot of cities trying to get the trade goods going again so they can keep up. Carthage is not doing great. They've got 4 cities on the board. And then there's a little bit of Celts down here in North Africa. And then Egypt, they have been building cities where they had built them prior, lost them, and now they're building them again. and they're at 6 cities, so they just need to build 3 more, and they have agriculture, so that really helps, and metalworking. Assyria, they have 4 cities built, and they're battling it out with the Minoans and a little bit with Hatti. But Hatti has agriculture, so they've just been putting 3 pieces for all those 2 spaces out there. The Minoans, they have been kind of harassing both Hellas, trying to take over Greece, a little bit on the coasts of the Asia Minor, and then of course you can see what they did here. Now there was treachery that took place, or not? I don't think it was treachery. I think it was another one. No, I think it was treachery. Treachery took place. The Assyrians took over one Minoan city on Cyprus. Hellas, they have 7 cities. They've been going kind of standard and steady. The barbarians hit the Celts this last time. They destroyed their 1 city out here in the upper Danube and then marched across the northern portion there. The Romans have 9 cities on the board, and they have their wonder. So they're trying to get in a position where they can compete. And if they keep pulling 9 cities, then they should be able to purchase some pretty serious technologies. And then the Celts up there, you can see they're just holding on, I guess, against Iberia and Rome and Hellas, but now they're knocked out of the Hellas area. So that's where we are at the end of turn 16. We'll be moving on to turn 17. So we'll be right back with the continuation of Western Empires. And we are at the end of turn 17. So let's move these forward. Rome gets to move forward, and we'll show you why in just a moment. And Hellas is moving forward. Okay, so let's look at the technologies. Just to scan again. Theology, mythology, which is kind of funny, and cloth making for Iberia. And for Celts, agriculture, they just bought that this turn. Deism, cloth making, metalworking. Rome picked up trade, empire, which would be very useful for them to escalate the game to a victory. They have 3 over 100. They have 1 over 200. They also have astronomy, mysticism, and monarchy. Carthage has monarchy, masonry, and mysticism. They still don't have anything over 100. Again, these guys, which are the Hellas, they have the calendar, agriculture, philosophy, which allows them to move forward. So they need 1 more to pop into the next age. And then Hatti, they have agriculture, deism, and literacy. So they have 2 over 100. They just need 1 more and they can move forward. The Egyptians have agriculture. They built their wonder this turn, and they saved all their trade cards. Assyria has monument. They need 2 more 100 points to move forward. And Minoans are the same boat. They need 2 100 points to move forward. And they have agriculture as well, cloth making, metalworking, deism. So, and then we'll look at the board. There was a lot of bad things happened on the board. A lot of calamities. Minoans. There was a civil war for the Celts, and the Minoans took advantage of it. There's really not. I mean, they got 1 city out of it here in the North Africa, and they got a troop way over there, or not a troop, a population point. Rome was at 9 cities. They're down to 7 now. There was a few things that happened. Can't remember. It wasn't an epidemic. Oh, it was a volcano or earthquake that took place. And Sicily. So Carthage lost in Panormus, and then Syracuse was destroyed at the same time. There was an epidemic in Halys, and there was, like I said, there was a bunch of calamities that took place this last time. Most people, or most the civilizations, built their wonders if they could not buy a technology yet to maximize their, so they could trade it in for a, a higher value on their trade cards. So here's Carthage was at 6 cities. It was the largest it's ever been. It spanned all of North Africa except for the very tip here, and Sicily, and Egypt is down to 4 cities. They had a lot, but they had some negative calamities take place. Assyria, Hatti was doing okay, but they just keep getting hit with stuff. Hellas, they lost a lot of cities. They were at 8, now they're down to 4. So Rome was the one that survived this last turn the best. And Iberia, they barely had enough population to support the cities they had built. They only lost 1, but they lost many population points this last turn. So we will be back at the end of turn 18. Here we are at the end of turn 18. There's been quite a few events that took place this turn. So here's the AST. Rome, Halys are both advancing through the late Bronze Age, getting close to the early Iron Age. They just need 2 civilizations of 200 or more to move into it, and 4 cities. Egypt pulled a huge coup, and we'll go over that in just a moment. I mean, not a coup, I guess. It's but a pretty substantial move. So first, this is pretty impressive. Iberia was able to get a hold of philosophy. So they have 2 civilizations over 200 points, and they just need 1 more over 100 points, and then they can move into the next age. Celts holding on. Rome has 1 civilization over 200 points and 2 over 100, but they need another 1 over 200 points to move into the next age, but they still have 1 move left before they have to worry about it. Carthage only has 3 civilizations. Hellas has, they have philosophy, and then they've got 2 more, so they're moving up, but well, I'll show you what happened in a moment. Hatti has 3, but they need 1 more over 100 to go into the next stage. The Celts, the Minoans have 4, but they have only 1 over 100. And then Assyria, they have 1 over 100, which is the monument. But here's what happened with Egypt. So Egypt had maxed oil except for 1 card they were missing. They used their wonder to max out that whole set. Then what they did is they used that and additional points to get a hold of the library. The library gave them 40 additional points for another one that they could buy this turn. They had enough points to utilize to get the library and then also to get democracy, because they already had agriculture, which gives them an addition to democracy. So they got 2 technologies. So Egypt will be able to move into the early Iron Age with no problem, and they only need 1 other 200 point to finish the game and enough cities. So like I said, this is going to kind of move pretty quickly at the very end here. So Iberia took back over the eastern portion or western portion of North Africa. and they're still holding on, fighting off the Minoans, who had a civil war prior, or the Celts had a civil war, and the Minoans got to take advantage of it. The Romans still, they built the Colosseum this turn. Carthage thought about buying something, but they decided to hold on and wait. Hellas, they had quite a few calamities that happened to them last turn, so it really slowed them down. And the Minoans have basically solidified their control over Greece. Hellas, of course, has Macedon. Hatti has basically surrounded the one city in Kanesh. I think it's Kanesh. Yep, Kanesh. Of the Assyrians. So the Assyrians have been kind of pushed back. The Assyrians were making a move, but now they've kind of pushed back. But the Assyrians do have the Levant pretty well tied up. They pushed the Minoans out. The Egyptians had a number of cities reduced through superstition, but they'll just rebuild them because when they reduce them, they max the population out, I believe. So they'll be able to rebuild them. And Carthage has most of North Africa, except for the very western tip, and of course where Egypt is. So that's where we ended on turn 18. We'll be moving into turn 19. And I figure this game will go maybe another 3 or 4 turns, unless calamities really mess up people, which is what could happen. Alright, Old Man Sarge back. We are heading into turn 20, so we're finishing turn 19. This is how the AST looks, the track. Got everybody stuck at the entrance to the Late Bronze Age, except for Rome, Hellas, and Egypt. And I'm really starting to think maybe Hellas might be able to pull this off. I'll show you why. Maybe. We'll see. So, no change for Iberia's technologies. The Celts, no change for them. Rome purchased anatomy, which allowed them to get a free technology, which they took coinage. So now they have 2 over 200, and that allowed them to go in the next age, which is the early Iron Age. When they get to that point, they're one space away. Carthage, and then here's Hellas. They did the same thing. They copied Rome, so they have anatomy, which gives them 2, which allows them to move up, and all they need is one more. Is it one more or 2 more? Yeah, one more civilization over 200 points. So if they can manage to get that, then they will be able to probably get to the end before anybody else. In fact, they will. They'll finish the game out. And then Hittite is still holding on. Minoans did get the library, which allowed them to also get a hold of drama and poetry. But they need one more technology of 100 points to move up still. The Assyrians have been kind of stuck. And Egypt, they already have enough to move up, as well as Rome. They just need one more for 200 points to get to the final stage. But Hellas might be able to do it before anybody else. And so how does the board look? So Iberia, first of all, it was kind of an interesting purchase by Carthage. They bought this technology called Diaspora. You may choose to take up to 5 of your tokens from the board and place them anywhere on the board, providing that no populations are exceeded. So they took 5 from the board and they put them all on one of the places, one of the locations in to try to mess with the Iberians. They might have wanted to mess with somebody else, but they're messing with the Iberians because they can possibly get a city spot there. So Iberia has western portion of North Africa, Iberia itself, and a little bit of Aquitaine, and then you can see that the Celts built a city in that territory. It took them 12 pieces to do so, but they built it there. And so so far as the Celts go, a couple things that we've discovered with the Celts is urbanization is probably a useful technology for them because it allows them to build in these difficult. There's not many city spots for them, in other words, and it'd take 8 units instead of 12. So I believe that's the technology. That's what it says. But let's take a look. Urbanization, and it says right down here. Once per turn, when constructing a wilderness city, you may choose to use up to 4 tokens from areas adjacent by land. Oh, I guess it's not fewer. It's just helps you build it easier. But that might be useful for them. The other thing is agriculture will be useful for them. Metalworking, useful for them. Iberia, I think metalworking is useful for everybody, to be honest. Iberia, agriculture will probably be useful for them. And probably astronomy, because that allows them to astronavigation, because that allows them to go much further instead of being just stuck over in Iberia. You can see where Rome is. They keep trying to get to 9 cities back again. They really want to compete with Hellas. Carthage, struggling again in central portion of North Africa. Hellas, they might be able to win this game. They had major assaults from 2 different civilizations. They had the Assyrians come in. You can see the boat there. They had Hatti come in. But then they got treachery off on Hatti. So Hatti actually settled this city here in Tomi. But they treacherized them and took that city back. Then you can see the Minoans have basically Greece and a little bit of Cyprus and southern portion of Asia Minor. Hatti's kind of struggled this game, but they seem to be stabilized and they're doing okay now. Assyria has struggled in this game. You can see that they have the Levant pretty much tied up, but they keep having calamities hit them. It's just unlucky. Barbarian invaders did attack the Egyptians, and Egypt's doing quite well. Agriculture, again, for Egypt is very useful because all these other spots are city spots, and Fayum and Memphis and Alexandria, but they're also 4 spots for your people. But if you have agriculture that allows you to add an additional unit or population in 1s and 2s, so that really helps build up your it helps you maintain your cities. Carthage, I don't know what to do with Carthage. They're pretty difficult, it seems, because they have the Iberians on one side, Egyptians on the other, Romans messing with them as well. And it just doesn't seem like they can, at least this game, they were able to get a stable footholding. Hellas seems to be okay because they've got some good population territories and they've got some decent city spots. They will be battling with Minoa over the Greek city spots, but for the most part, they can get up to the higher end cities fairly easily. I think Hatti can do it as well, and agriculture is probably useful for them, but it's just a little more difficult because they're dealing with Minoans and the Assyrians. And the Assyrians, without the, I don't know if when you add the Eastern Empires what it would be like, but the Assyrians, they just seem to be pressured. They just seem to be kind of stuck up the side by the Hatti, and it doesn't seem to be a very difficult thing for them to do so. Anyway, we will be back at the end of turn 20. Alright, I'm going to show you the bad things that happened to Rome this turn. There's a lot of calamities that took place. So Rome got hit with this one. Iconoclasm, and heresy. And they didn't have anything to stop it so it literally reduces 4 of their cities. They also got hit with tyranny, so they lost some more of their territory, which you'll see in a moment. And then other parts of the board got hit with an epidemic. So you can see that Assyria is in now northern portion of Rome. Epidemic, and also a civil war took place against the Celts. So they lost a lot of their territory, all of Britain in fact, to the Assyrians. It's just wild, just a crazy last turn with all these different... The only ones that didn't really get hit with calamities were Carthage, Iberia, and Egypt. So the 3 kind of southern portions of Africa and Spain did not really get hit with calamities. Everyone else got slammed with epidemics, famines, so the populations have just been decimated across the board. Halys got hit, the Minoans got hit. Rome only has 1 city remaining. Yeah, it's a total collapse. And we'll see if Rome can try to finish this game out. They need 1 more 200-point technology to get over to that last spot. And here's how it looks. Rome, Halys are already in the early Iron Age, trying to get to the late. Egypt's barking at the door here. In fact, they have it. They have the 2 that they need. They just need to make sure they have 4 cities and they can jump over with the other 2. Hatti, who is so far behind, so for such a long time in the game, is now moving up because they have the 3 cities and the 3 civilizations cards of 100 or more. So they're going to start moving up. Everybody else is kind of still stuck behind. So here's how the board looks. Well, let's go over the technologies real quick so you can see. So nothing changed for Iberia. Nothing changed for the Celts, except for the civil wars, the second one in a short time. Nothing's really changed for the Romans. They have a ton of research done already. Carthage didn't change anything. Halys didn't change anything, but mining was purchased by mining technology was purchased by Hatti, which moved them forward. And the other person that bought mining was the Assyrians, but they needed 1 more technology, 100 points or more to move forward. So, and here's what the board looks like. Iberia is trying to come back. They had some pretty big hits like a couple turns ago. The Celts just got absolutely hammered this last time. You got England's lost, Britannia's lost, I guess. The Romans have to rebuild all their cities. Minoans and Halys have to rebuild all their cities. Hatti has to rebuild their cities. Assyria, they're depopulated. They got to redo, although they've got 5 cities, so they might actually make out on this. Egypt, looking pretty good. Egypt might actually be the winner of this game because of all this. So we'll be back at the end of turn 21, and we'll let you see what it looks like at that point. Alright, we have ended turn 21. We're now moving on to turn 22. Here's how the standings look. So most civilizations haven't been able to get the 3 required over 100. Hatti has, and they're trying to catch up to the remainder, the other 3. Rome, Halys, and Egypt. And the only civilization that bought a technology were the Celts, and they bought the written record. Or literacy, pardon me. Literacy. So how does the board look? Not much different than last time. Iberia is actually kind of expanded its power. Carthage is still sitting in North Africa. They did get a little bit on that boot of Africa or Italy. Egypt has 7 cities. They lost 1 in an earthquake between Hatti just lost a city, and they also lost a neighboring city. Assyria is spread all over the board. They're trying to get themselves back organized again. Hatti had a flood, and something else happened to them. They had two calamities hit them. Oh, they had a flood, and then they had treachery, in which Rome benefited from, and they took one of their cities. Rome only still has 2 cities out, but that's because there was a cyclone that came in the western Mediterranean, wiped out 3 Iberian cities, 2 Roman cities, and 1 Carthage city. The reason only one Carthage city was reduced is because Carthage has masonry, which gives them 1 less city to be reduced. The Minoans are trying to rebuild in the Greece. They took Crete back, and Hatti has now pushed the Assyrians kind of back out of where they initially were, and now they're kind of ringing around the Baltic now. So we will return at the end of turn 22. It's getting close to the end, but the calamities keep slowing people down. Here we are at the end of turn 22, Western Empires. We'll be moving on to turn 23 here in a moment. So here's the AST track. Hatti, which was a big surprise to me because they were basically way behind everybody. Now they're in 4th place essentially. But Iberia has gone into the late Bronze Age, and they've done that with the purchase of medicine. So they just figured they better start moving because the game might end in the next 1 or 2 turns from now. Okay, so this is how things look. Iberia still has Iberia, and the western little section of North Africa, which has been kind of like that way for a bit. The Celts have retaken Britain for the most part from the rebellious Assyrians. Assyrians still have 1 city sitting in the middle of France, though. The Romans are having to deal with the Carthage and the southern boot of Italy. Let's see. Oh, this city here, which was a treachery from the Romans, Illyrium, has been returned treachery a couple turns later back to Hellas. I'm not sure. I think Rome gained it a different way, but I can't remember. So Hellas is still holding on. They're one of the contenders for the victory of the game. Hatti is actually doing quite well. They're at 6 cities. They've got a pretty substantial position here. Minoans, they're solid. They got kicked out of Phoenicia, though. The Egyptians, I was thinking that they'd be my pick to win, because they have like almost 8 cities and highly defensible. And Rome was the lead for a long time. Hellas and Rome were switching out for lead for a long time, and then Rome kind of fell on hard times with a bunch of calamities. So, all right, we will return at the end of turn 23. Old Man Sarge back again, and this is turn 24, and the game has ended. So I'll show you the AST track. So this is what the AST track looked at the end of the game. Egypt pushed in, got the last technology they needed to win the game. Again, they needed 3 civilizations, over 200 points, and 5 cities, which they had. Everybody else tried to buy as many victory point civilization cards as they could at the end of the game. How did the game go at the end? Well, there was a civil war in Iberia, and Hellas was basically the beneficiary of that civil war. The Celts, they kind of just, I guess, were all over the northern portions of Europe and Germany and Brittany. The Romans got really hammered, and so did Hellas, with some calamities. And probably the last 3 or 4 turns, they just kept getting hit. Rome was actually in the lead for a while, and Hellas was actually in the lead for a while. And they just kept getting hit with calamities, and they just could not recover from that. Carthage never really got going. They had a rough go in the game. Egypt about the middle part of the game was really hurting, but because of their positioning on the board, they were able to build back up again, and you'll see what happened. They actually won. Assyria and Hatti kind of battled it out, and Manoah came over and battled it out as well. But eventually, the Levant was conquered by the Assyrians, and Armenia and basically the western portion or the eastern portion of the Asia Minor. Hatti actually did fairly well in the game. There was a point at which they were really hurting, but they came back. The Minoans, they were doing well at the very end. They actually really held on to Greece fairly well against the Hellas, and they put some pressure on Hatti and Assyria too, to some degree. So that's kind of how the map looked at the very end. So let's go over the technologies. So real quick, this is the technology tree, or what they had for Iberia. Sorry, I dropped my pencil. So Iberia had, as you can see, Iberia was actually moving up. So they were like in 5th place or so, at least on that board. So, sorry. Cloth making. Mysticism was acquired at the very end, so you might not want to count that one too much. It was just acquired just to try to get another victory point. Cloth making was acquired early on, so was mythology. There was a point at which Iberia was doing really well, and they actually got these 2 technologies within about 2 turns or 3 turns of each other. So this would have pushed them, this would have pushed them into the final, almost the final stage. They would just need one more 200-point card. So, and then medicine. So Iberia finished with 82 victory points at the end. If it wasn't for the Civil War, they might have been able to get a little bit more. So 82 for Iberia. The Celts, they had a more difficult time in the game, mainly because the way that the Celts were situated in the map, there's not a lot of city spots, and so they kind of need to build, or at least maybe try to build into areas that you would take a lot more tokens to build in. I don't know where you would do that necessarily. And agriculture seems to be a pretty decent card for them, and metalworking. I actually think that these 3 cards are some of the most powerful cards, at least for a good combination. Agriculture, coinage, and metalworking. They also had cloth making, and they had dyeism. They got coinage at the very end of the game. So the Celts finished the game at 64 victory points. The Romans, they were in the lead for quite a while, and they were on the verge of winning the game. They have 2 of the cards. They need 3, but they only had 2. They acquired law at the very end, and there's actually more victory point cards than I can actually show in civilization cards. So Rome acquired astronomy early on, which allowed them to go out and kind of pick on the Egyptians a little bit when they got hit with calamities, which actually I think helped put them a little bit further in the lead for a while. And then they started getting hit with all the calamities, and all their external populations were not really supported after that. This is a good card, Anatomy. You get to pick another card of less than 100 points automatically, and you get that one. So that's like a free victory point. So that card's actually like 7 victory points in a way. And they picked up law at the end. They had monarchy and coinage, mysticism. Rome finished the game with 99 victory points, so they were one shy of 100. If they would have been able to go into that next, like into that last column, Rome may have been able to win. That's how close it was. Carthage had a rough go. They have 6 cards. They picked the fundamentalism up at the end. I don't know how valuable this card is. It's kind of weird. You just get to move troops on the board. So I'm not sure if that's a good one. Cloth making, mysticism. Masonry seemed to be pretty good. Masonry actually helped them out a couple times because it reduces that cyclone effect. So if your civilization really is next to the ocean, you got a lot of cities next to the ocean, this is not a bad card, and it's not that expensive. And then monarchy. Monarchy just kind of reduces the barbarian hordes. But tyranny could be worse. So, and that was Carthage. Hellas, Carthage finished at 68 victory points. Hellas, let's see if I can get these all out for you to see what Hellas had. So Hellas kind of copied Rome, and they bought Anatomy, and then that allowed them to pick up coinage. So Hellas was actually in the lead for a while in the game, and then it was between Rome and Hellas for quite a while. So Hellas, agriculture is a good one for them. Metalworking is good for about anybody. They picked up this one card at the very beginning, and they were thinking that if they got that card, they could get all those little all those points to purchase additional cards in the future. But it didn't really quite work out that way. And so they also got calendar at the very end. They picked up calendar. Hellas finished the game at 95 victory points. So Rome beat them by 4 victory points. And that's a lot of that might have had to do with all the calamities they got hit with. Because if you look, there's no cities in this area. They've all been destroyed by famines or epidemics or whatever. You don't have to take the cities off, but if you don't take the cities off, then you have to take a lot of your population points off. Hatti was an interesting force. They don't have a lot of technology cards. They only have 5. But Hatti finished the game at 85 victory points. Just because they got enough to be moving forward in the positioning. So they're like, for example, Hatti compared to Assyria, they have 10 more victory points because they're ahead in the AST track. So they're 2 levels higher than Assyria, so they got 10 extra victory points that way. And Assyria finished the game at 81. So if Assyria would have done something a little earlier and moved up faster, they probably would have beat Hatti. Hattie just kind of, they started getting these cheaper cards, and then they thought, well, we'll just buy out these more expensive cards so that we can skip the next, we can get into the next epics or the next ages. So we're going to not even worry about the little ones. We'll just save up and buy these higher valued cards and push forward faster. The strategies seemed to work out okay. Of course, they still needed another 200-point card to move up to the last stage, or second to last stage. So 85 victory points for Hattie. The Minoans, they basically just kind of fought everybody off and tried to control all the city spots. The thing about Greece is that the value of the terrain isn't that good. It's like 2s. The 3s are like half of Crete and the island Thera. Everything else is low population, but they're all really good city spots. And so Greece, or Crete, if the Crete player, a Minoan player I should say, if the Minoan player can get certain technologies like agriculture, and there's another one called, I can't remember, but it has to do with, you can put one unit with each one of your cities. So it enables you to build out your full population of cities in a small area. Both those technologies do. I can't remember the name of it, but anyway, here's the technologies that Minoans had. So they had cloth making, drama and poetry. The Minoans finished at 78 victory points, so they were just 3 points behind Assyria. I think that would be one of the more enjoyable places to play in the game, is right in the middle of everybody, but maybe frustrating depending on how other people play. Assyria finished the game at 81 victory points. They actually came on. They had 7 cities at the end of the game, so you can see that they're all kind of laid out there. Assyria ended the game with 81 victory points. They picked up sculpture, which nobody else did, which is a good one against tyranny. And they got super mysticism fairly early. They struggled though. I mean, they just barely got over the point with three cards, and they were trying to do that same strategy of, well, we'll buy the 200-point cards, and that way we can push forward. Mining's an interesting card too. So what mining says is you can buy a stack 6 or a stack 8 for 13 treasury points. But it also increases your slave revolt if it happens. But also your coins are worth 2 points instead of 1, which I think that'd make it a lot easier to purchase technologies. So anyway, and Assyria finished at 81 victory points. And the winner is Egypt. Egypt, of course, gets this card for being the only one to get into the final stage. They also, at the very last turn, their last card was the wonder of the world. So they built their pyramids. Of course, they never really got to use them. The library was a useful card, especially if you prepare to use those 40 points. You can kind of, I guess, leverage that into purchasing another valuable card. They had democracy. Of course, agriculture is very valuable for the Egyptians because the thing about them is, I think I might have talked about this earlier, all their city spots are also the areas in which they have high population. So if you start putting cities there without agriculture, well, then you're going to have, you're going to be limited. So it's almost better, I think, to get agriculture and then you can build on those. They picked up urbanism at the very end. They had pottery, which is a very good card to have. The main reason why I think pottery is good to have is when the famine comes up, some people will target, because you have agriculture, they're going to target you. Well, this just reduces that effect. Metalworking is good to have, of course, for anybody, and then they had monarchy. So, first place was Egypt at 111 victory points. Second place was Rome, what's left of it, at 99 victory points. Third place was Hellas at 95 victory points, and any one of those three I think could have won this game, just depending on how things flowed. Fourth place is Hatti at 85 victory points. Fifth place is Iberia, who also doesn't look like a whole bunch right now because of their civil war. But Iberia had 82 victory points, and they beat out Assyria by 1 victory point, because Assyria ended up at 81 victory points. And then seventh was Minoan at 78 victory points. Eighth was Carthage at 68. And finally, the Celts, unfortunately, are at the very end at 9th place. And they had 64 victory points. Again, I think the Celts are a little difficult with the board the way it is. I'm going to be very interested to see how this game plays when they come out with the Eastern Empires. I know they have it in Mega Empires, but the Eastern Empires will make the game interesting for Egypt and Assyria, I'm sure. Plus, I know Babylon will be in there and other civilizations. So, I hope you enjoyed the game flow. I went from the very beginning all the way to the very end. This was the basic game. The more complex game, I think, would take a long time, a very long time. But that is Western Empires. I recommend the game for hardcore gamers, for people who are just like to play on occasion. The one downside of the game is it's extremely long, and the game will last, they say 12 hours, but it could be even longer depending on how the players play. One of the things is a lot of people, when they play the game, they will not, once their empire starts having problems with calamities, one of the natural reactions is to become like barbaric and just start attacking your neighbors or whatever. But that's not the best method, I don't think. But I think that's a natural progression for people. The best method is to just try to reorganize your civilization and get it back on its feet. Because the thing is that other people will have calamities as well. So if you get in the mode of just fighting, then you're not going to be advancing. You're going to make it hard for people to advance, including yourself. So it can just increase the length of the game. I think if you had some very good players at the game, I think it could take less than 12 hours. If people knew what they were doing and they knew how they were going to drive for their technology depending on the civilization that they were playing. But anyway, I really enjoy the game. I like watching how the game flowed. I like that Rome and Hellas came into play, but then Egypt kind of eclipsed them at the end, and I like how Hatti was coming up, you know, right behind them and competing with Assyria. So yeah, it was pretty interesting. I kind of feel bad for Carthage and in this particular game, and also Celts. So maybe in the future we'll try another one, but I'd like to do it when the Eastern Empires comes out, and just do it all at once with a massive Eastern and Western Empires game. So this is Old Man Sarge signing off. Hope you enjoyed the game.